Chicken on a stick.
Hi, I'm Patrick.
I'm Maggie.
And we are Chicken on a Stick. Welcome to another episode of Chicken on a Stick.
Welcome, welcome.
This week we're talking about a film that I picked. Again, we alternate every single week, but this is one of the films that I just absolutely love.
Right.
And that's 2007's Tim Burton's Sweeney Todd, The Demon Barber of Fleet Street, starring Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter.
Which is on Broadway currently.
That's part of the reason for picking it is I already knew I wanted to do this because I love it so much, but because of its recent revival on Broadway, I figured now's as good a time as any.
And when we were first talking, like even before we started dating, I think that you had mentioned that you loved the movie so much, and I said that I had never seen it, and so when we were living in different places at the time, I think one night we like virtually watched it at the same time or something like that. I don't remember. But I remember thinking after I watched it, how come I haven't watched this sooner? Because I loved it. It was interesting. But I do love Tim Burton movies, and I love Johnny Depp, and I was surprised at how good it was.
And we'll get into more of that in a second.
Best. All right, you sir, how about a shave? Come and visit your good friend Sweeney. You sir, too sir, welcome to the grave. I will have vengeance. I will have salvation. Who sir? You, sir? No one's in the chair. Come on. Sweeney's waiting. I want you, bleeders. You, sir? Anybody? Gentlemen, I don't be shy.
Okay, so Sweeney Todd, as I said, I absolutely love this. Yeah. And just to kind of give a little bit of history on it, I don't know exactly when my first sort of experience with the story of Sweeney Todd was. Because it's one of two things. It's maybe even like a threefold sort of situation, which is I'd obviously already known Tim Burton. For a long time. Nightmare Before Christmas was like my favorite movie of all time, period. And obviously he doesn't direct it or anything, but it was his brainchild and all that sort of stuff. And then I liked some of his other works that he has done before this, like Corpse Bride. You know, he did Edward Scissorhands before this, although I hadn't seen that till many years later. Whatever, all of Tim Burton's stuff. I just like the style, all that story.
You do to this day still every year, either for Christmas or your birthday, do receive Nightmare Before Christmas memorabilia from your family.
That is true. But so somewhere in, I'm gonna say 2006, give or take. YouTube definitely had to have existed at the time, so it's 2006 or maybe early 2007. Couple things happened. One, obviously promotion for the movie starts to come out. And I do very distinctly remember being at a movie theater and one of those big cardboard cutouts was, I want to say, like the barber chair and like blood splattered all over the place or something. It said Sweeney Todd and it was like from Tim Burton or something. And I was like, what is that? I want to know more about that thing. Yeah. So I looked it up, found out it was based on a play. Looked up the play, found the 1982 filmed version of the first national U.S. tour.
Oh, wow.
Which was technically the third time it had been put on, which we'll get more into the history of the actual Sweeney Todd stuff. But specifically, this one was Stephen Sondheim's Sweeney Todd musical Broadway play, but it was the Angela Lansbury was in it. George Hearn was in it. And that's the first time I'd ever watched it like fully. And I was like instantly fell in love. But again, this is where I'm not quite sure of the timeline 100% because I remember we haven't talked about Kevin Smith on this at any point yet, I don't think. But Kevin Smith has a movie from 2004 called Jersey Girl, starring Ben Affleck. George Carlin's in it. In that, his daughter takes part in a play of Sweeney Todd. And there's scenes from that of them doing Sweeney Todd. And I can't remember if I'd seen that first, so I did sort of know of Sweeney Todd a little bit, and then I saw the advertisements which brought me to the play, or if it was like the reverse of I saw that stuff, and then because I was like so obsessed with it, I looked into it and I was like, wait, there's something about it in Jersey Girl? And then rewatched Jersey Girl, and I was like, oh, that's shit, cute. There is.
Was Jersey Girl the one that had J-Lo in it?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's really funny. I would love to see kids do Sweeney Todd.
Yeah.
That sounds hilarious.
So to get to it sort of before we actually start talking about the movie, because Sweeney Todd as a story has a very long history and is sort of complicated. In that Sweeney Todd as we know it now, which is the movie is based on the Stephen Sondheim musical, Broadway musical, which came about in 1979, which was when he originally put it on. That was based on a 1970 play that he saw over in London somewhere.
Oh, interesting.
He the way he told it is he was out on town and he wanted to go see a certain play that was being put on at like this little pub. He thought it was something else, and he went to it, and it wasn't that. It was a version of Sweeney Todd, and he was just so into it that he thought this would make an excellent musical, and then made the musical.
That is so fascinating.
The play itself of Sweeney Todd goes back a very long time.
I had no idea.
Sweeney Todd originally comes from a series of serialized stories that were printed way back in England in the 1840s, widely known as penny dreadfuls. The first story appearance of Sweeney Todd is from 1946 story called The String of Pearls, a domestic romance. And it's not 100% the same story, but a lot of the same story elements of he's a barber, he kills people, there's a revolving chair that drops their bodies, his downstairs neighbor cuts up those bodies, puts them into meat pies, and then there's a sailor and a young girl trying to escape and all that sort of stuff. So all of the elements are there, but the story itself is slightly different in that he's not out for revenge, they just kill rich people to take their shit.
Interesting.
Yeah,
and I had no idea that it had such a backstory.
I mean, it goes even further back from that. It was actually so popular that before it was finished being published, because it took over a year to publish like the full story, there was a play made of it before the finale was even done.
Really?
So it was already super popular. It had tons of plays and stuff done from it since that time. And then, just sort of coincidentally, as that's being popularized, again, in London at that time in the late, well, I guess 1846 isn't exactly the late 1800s, but like the middle of the 1800s, it goes on to be this play that gets popular, and there's a bunch of different adaptations of it and all this sort of stuff. Towards the end of, like 30 years later or so, there's a very famous set of murders that takes place in Whitechapel, London, with Jack the Ripper, which kind of helps. The way that they tell in this little like behind the scenes thing is it sort of helped revitalize interest in Sweeney Todd, because there was Sweeney Todd was already a story with the other penny dreadfuls, and I want to say they call them like penny bloodies or something, which was like slightly more violent ones, are all these like violent, horrible acts of things that are happening, and then all of a sudden there's a real life one that's happening that has no face to like pinpoint with Jack the Ripper, because we don't know who Jack the Ripper was. Right.
I did 1,000,000% before watching Sweeney Todd think that it was Sweeney Todd was Jack the Ripper.
No. it's very interesting that there's some history. There was a period of time, and I remember when I first got into this, there's this weird thing where some people think that Sweeney Todd is based on a real person, and there are historical accounts of potentially there having been a person who was a barber who killed people in, like, France or something. There's no specific Sweeney Todd. There's no specific person on Fleet Street who did these things or whatever. But there were, during the 19th century, there was a semi-common trade that was called a barber surgeon, where people were both barbers and surgeons.
What?
Yeah, and then eventually, basically they were illiterate surgeons, so they weren't exactly great at their jobs. And eventually that got outlawed by King George II in 1745.
Good.
But that's
terrible.
that's 100 years before the story actually happens. But the original story is supposed to take place in, like, the late 1780s or something, mid 1780s. So there's a lot of, like, craziness that goes on, and if you, like, really dive deep into the history of Sweeney Todd, and, like, even off the Blu-ray, the special features, they're talking to, like, historians and stuff who are like, there could have been a person, but there's no actual evidence that there was a person, so whatever.
I think if I met someone and asked what they did for a living, and they were like, "Oh, I've got 2 jobs. I'm a part-time barber and a part-time surgeon," I don't know if I would trust you to do either one of those jobs. I don't like that mix.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's very on the opposite ends of the spectrum.
So now to get towards the movie.
Yes.
First off, I do suggest the 1982 version of Sweeney Todd with Angela Lansbury and George Hearn. If you can find a full version of it, I think it's worth watching.
Angela Lansbury is in the Teapot from Beauty and the
Yes.
Beast.
Yeah.
She plays Helena Bonham Carter's character?
She is the original Miss Lovitz in the musical, yes.
That's...
She played it in the original, in the 1979 version, and then again in the first national tour she came back for it. But the original, George Hearn was the third person to do Sweeney Todd, musical-wise. There's obviously been tons of Sweeney Todds. There was even a guy there's a 1936 film of Sweeney Todd with the actor who is in it playing Sweeney Todd, played Sweeney Todd, like, more times than anybody in history, because he literally played it from when he was, like, 30 into, like, his 80s or some crazy shit like that. That one I don't know too much about, but now that if it's out there somewhere, I do want to watch it, but I know that that's more based on, like, the original story and play, not necessarily the musical, how the musical is, because they're definitely 2 separate things.
Well, now I'm interested. I want to see Angela Lansbury play a character
She's
that's
great.
like a badass.
Oh, she's great.
Because I only think of her as, like, sweet, doting little, you know.
Yeah. She's fantastic, though. So, the story goes that 20 years or so before 2007, which is when the movie came out, Tim Burton had seen the Broadway show, or seen in the West End show, somewhere in London. He had saw the show, and he had met Stephen Sondheim at that point, and said that he was a big fan. Helena Bonham Carter says that Tim Burton was not a musical person, so it's interesting that he went and saw a musical and apparently loved it. Kind of interesting little thing there. And Sondheim said, according to himself, in these behind the scenes, he's not been a fan of any of the musical adaptations that he had of his works beforehand. But with this one, he got a lot more say as far as, like, the casting. He got sort of final say in the casting, or at least part in the casting to some degree. And he seems like he liked that instead of being a direct adaptation where they're just moving a Broadway musical or stage musical to screen, instead Tim Burton went about this by making it a movie,
Right.
but about the story that he
Right.
made with the songs. And a lot of the stuff that they did to change it from seeming more like stage musical is they cut out all of the chorus bits, and they cut out any like random secondary character who was not relevant to the story singing.
Interesting.
Because that's what Tim Burton says, is that he didn't want it. This is where you can tell like he's clearly not exactly a fan of musicals.
Yeah.
Was that he says, I didn't want at any point just to have like there's some dialogue and then they just burst out into singing.
Right.
Like I didn't want that. I wanted it to feel more sort of natural and fluid to the actual
Cohesive.
story.
Yeah.
Which I think he generally does. But anyway, we get in this Johnny Depp is Sweeney Todd.
Mm-hmm.
I believe this was the 6th time that Johnny Depp and Tim Burton worked together, going back to Edward Scissorhands, Ed Wood, Corpse Bride, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and then something else that I can't think of off the top of my head in between that.
But they are very historically known for working very well together. They have like an actual friendship. Him and Helena Bonham Carter are also really, really close.
Who, Helen Bonham Carter and Tim Burton?
Well, Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter are close. They're also close because
This was the first thing that they actually like acted alongside each other in.
Was this the first one?
Where they acted together.
Well, I knew that they were close because she is married to Tim Burton.
I don't think they were married. I think it was some
this
sort
one?
of like domestic partnership or something. I don't think it was actual marriage.
Just yet.
No, I don't think they've ever been actually married.
Oh, really?
I don't think so.
Oh, I thought that they were.
I didn't look into their personal lives,
Sorry.
but I'm pretty sure I remembered that they weren't. It was some sort of.
They're just partners.
Yeah, and they've long since separated. That was like in 2014 or something.
Oh, no shit.
Pretty sure.
Well, alright.
They do have kids together, but
Yeah.
I don't think they ever full on got married.
Well, anyway, I think all of their chemistry together is really, really good.
Yeah. So they. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Helena Bonham Carter's in this. She plays Miss Lovett, and then Alan Rickman plays Judge Turpin. Those are obviously like the three sort of central characters, but you do have other people such as Timothy Spall is in it, who plays Beetle, Sacha Baron Cohen, who plays Pirelli, and then Jamie Campbell Bower, who, if you don't know that name, but you've watched Netflix's Stranger Things, and
Yes.
especially the last season 4, he plays Vecna
Yeah.
throughout the show.
Bad guy.
He is in this. He plays as Anthony, the young sailor.
Very young and charming.
And then Maggie spotted in an uncredited cameo
Yes, I
appearance.
did.
I don't even know if you can really call it a cameo, but an uncredited role. Whatever.
Which I was so excited about. I know for sure that I didn't notice it the first time that I watched this movie, but it just popped up, and it was Giles from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He just popped in for a quick little spot on the screen, and then off he went.
Yep.
And I immediately, as soon as he was on the screen, I kind of gasped, and I looked at you, and then I started to type my note out, and you were like, what? I was like, do you know who that was? Giles. And you were like, are you
literally
sure?
never knew until that moment.
I was like, I'm pretty sure. And sure enough, it was.
I never would have got that. So there's a lot of crazy sort of happenstances that go into the making of this movie, which is one, both Helena Bonham Carter and Johnny Depp's first musical, any sort of movie, where they're actually doing like singing and all that sort of stuff. Helena Bonham Carter was apparently a big fan of Sweeney Todd as a child. Her parents were apparently big fans and brought home like a, I want to say soundtrack, but not necessarily the soundtrack, but like a script that kind of had all the songs in it and stuff that she says that she would always look over.
She looks like she would like that as a kid.
And she said she didn't know that she'd be able to do the singing outside of, she just like sings in the showers was the joke that she had made. Mm-hmm. But she went through and auditioned and everything and then managed to get it.
She does a great job.
Johnny Depp, they weren't sure about. They knew that he kind of had the look, and Tim Burton, even in like an early sketch, said that the two of them kind of look like his sketches, which is hilarious because his sketches are like quite literally just little sketches. They don't look like much of anything, but I guess he saw them in it. And Johnny Depp...
Was Johnny Depp in a band?
I was about to get there. So he originally came to Hollywood not as an actor, but as part of a band. Not a singer, just part of a band. Part of it.
I thought so.
He wasn't sure about his ability to actually sing and reached out to like an old bandmate of his to kind of figure it out. And they were already in production of this movie. They had sets built, they had costumes built. Other people were filming things already before anybody actually heard Johnny Depp sing.
No kidding.
And once they got him on set to sing, which his first song was My Friends, which we'll get to, which is when he gets the razors, everybody knew it was like perfect, that it would work. Sondheim was there, and he knew that it was like, it would work. It was perfect.
He's got a great voice.
So, everything sort of worked out great. Obviously, Sacha Baron Cohen works out. He has a history of singing in like choirs and stuff when he was younger. So I
think he sang in university or something. I think like he did some sort of technical training because he's also in Les Mis.
Yes, which came out years later.
But yeah, I think he's one of those people that I never in a million years would have expected him to have technical, almost operatic style singing. And he does.
They did record the score before shooting anything. So everybody did recordings in like sound booths and stuff, and then it was played back on set, which is relatively normal.
Yeah.
But a big thing that Burton wanted to do was that every actor used their own voice. So it's not like they have a talking voice and then somebody else sings for them. Right. It's all each actor is doing their own singing and everything, so that's great.
Keeps things a lot more cohesive and realistic, I think.
And then, sort of finally, before we actually get to the movie itself, is Tim Burton's goal with this was to, like I said before, not to just bring the play to the screen, but to make it a movie first, and he drew inspiration from classic horror movies, things with like Bela Lugosi or Lon Chaney Jr., like old black and white or even silent horror films was what he was going for, but just adding the music on top of it. And I think
it works.
Basically what they got out of it.
Yeah, it really works.
So, on to the movie itself. We get an opening, which is a title scene, or title sort of credits playing with visuals going on, and it's a lot of like machinery and blood dripping, and it's like this blood kind of moving through everything into eventually the title screen, with sort of an overture of in the play what is generally sort of the Sweeney Todd opening number. Since you haven't seen it, the thing I could equate it to is like in the beginning of Hamilton, where they sing about Hamilton before the whole thing actually starts. Right. Same sort of thing. I did see somewhere, and I mean I can't pull it up 100%, but people had pointed out that song is callback to the Battle Royale episode where I mentioned that there was the old Latin song. Remember in the opening of Battle Royale, there's that old like Latin song that's called I'm gonna horribly mispronounce it again, but Dies Irae or Dies Irae. Sweeney Todd is apparently that song, but inversed.
Oh.
So it's sort of Sondheim took that inspiration from that and sort of inversed that song as the central theme for Sweeney Todd, apparently,
that's so cool.
which is very interesting. And having heard somebody talk about that and then hearing it back, and I watched a little bit of the play again before this, it makes a lot of sense.
That's so interesting.
So anyway, we get these visuals going on with it, and it kind of sets the tone to be this dark,
very dark,
scary horror sort of thing we're coming into. And then we kind of see fog and a ship coming through the fog.
Yeah.
Coming to London.
Thank you for not calling it a boat.
It's a boat.
It's a ship.
And on the boat, we see a young sailor start to sing "There's No Place Like London." This is the first time we're introduced to Anthony, a young, sort of optimistic sailor who is coming back to London after having traveled the world. As the song says, I've traveled the world and seen its wonders, but there's no place like London.
Yeah.
And Todd is there with him, and Todd is also saying there's no place like London, but because London sucks ass.
Yeah. He's like, we're thinking about it in very different ways.
So yeah, we're introduced to these two characters who are very central to the whole plot, and they've got two different ideologies, and that Anthony is full of wonder and hope and optimism for the world, whereas Todd has been sort of beat down and is more pessimistic, as he says that there's probably one of my favorite lines in the whole thing, which is there's a hole in the world like a great black pit, and it's filled with vermin. And he's basically just saying that like London is this hole of just horrible, awful people. Later in other ones that he says is there's a hole in the world like a great black pit, and it's filled with people who are filled with shit, and the vermin of the world inhabit it, and that place is London.
Yeah. Like, this place isn't as magical as you think that it is.
Yeah. So Anthony basically is asking him, like, why do you feel that way? And he's like, look, the world's been kind to you, and I appreciate you. You're basically told that Anthony saved Todd's life. He was on a little raft or ship, and Anthony spotted him, and they brought him onto the ship, and they brought him back to London, and he's grateful to Anthony for doing that, because now he can seek out what he wants to seek out, basically. It's left kind of vague, but when Anthony asks him more, he tells him the story of the barber and his wife.
Right.
And she was beautiful.
Yeah. It's a really, really great song, and it is such an interesting look at someone who's been through the shit and is telling someone, like, I know that you've got these big bright eyes about the great things that are coming in life, but you're gonna find out sooner or later that life sucks.
Yeah. So we get the song here, Barber and his wife, and Todd is singing. There's no... Obviously, you can't really do this in a... Well, I mean, I suppose you could potentially do it in a play, but visually, in the medium of a movie, which is much more freedom for visual things, because you can cut to, like, flashbacks and all sorts of things like that much easier, especially in the middle of a song. We see during A Barber and His Wife, we get sort of a flashback to a young Todd. Very clearly, it's him, because... It's not like it's different actors. It's Johnny Depp, just not with a white streak in his hair.
Right.
And we see him and his wife with a daughter. Everything is more brightly colored. It's got like this hue of sort of gold going on around it. And the song basically says that there was a barber and his wife. She was beautiful. She was virtuous. She was innocent. And then there was him, and he was... naive to the world around him, and what happens is we're introduced to a judge, to Judge Turpin and Beetle Bamford. Judge Turpin played by Alan Rickman, and they strum up false charges against Todd to get him sent away to I don't know if the movie ever mentions it, but the play mentions Australia.
Really?
Not 100% sure if he's actually sent to Australia, or if that's just where there's like wherever you went, Australia or whatever, but he's sent away, And
seems excessive.
The reason for this is the judge wants his wife.
Yeah.
He thinks she's beautiful and she wants him, and it doesn't exactly work to plan.
No.
But we will find out more of that because obviously as Todd gets taken away, he doesn't know what happened after that.
Yeah.
As he tells Anthony, he says that was many years ago. I'm not sure if anybody would actually know what happened.
It's also a good thing to note that the beautiful beautiful blonde innocent woman and this judge Alan Rickman's character, that's a very, very big age difference. Like he looks like he could be her grandfather.
Yeah, but that's not the point.
I know it's not, but still.
You know what they say? It's like with cars, you're supposed to get a new one new model every few years or something, right? Is that the thing?
Yeah, that'll do.
I don't know. I don't know anything about cars. What am I talking about? Anyway, so before Todd and Anthony part ways, Anthony's like, "Will I see you again before I shove off?" And Todd's like, "I don't know, but if you want to search me out, you may find me over by Fleet Street." Okay. Which again shows that, like, even though Sweeney Todd's got sort of a pessimistic view and is very clearly filled with, like, bitterness and anger over things that happened in the past, he thinks, like, sort of friendly of Anthony. He maybe sees a little bit of himself from his younger days in
maybe
him.
Like a little brother kind of thing.
But he goes off. We get this shot of, like, the camera sort of going through these streets and alleyways of London, and it's, again, Tim Burton movie, so it's pretty dark and things look grimy and sort of gross, and we kind of go through, like, a red light sort of district and all this stuff, and we end up at Fleet Street, but more importantly, this specific building, which has Miss Lovett's pies on the bottom and something on top of it, and
like a vacant place.
Apartment, loft, flat, whatever you call it.
Is Fleet Street a real street?
Pretty sure. I don't know. Never been. So Todd goes in to Miss Lovett's, and when he gets in there, this is where we see Helena Bonham Carter for the first time, and she starts to sing "Worst Pies in London."
It's a gross scene.
It is.
I did not care for it the first time I watched it.
It's all about Miss Lovett makes meat pies. That's her occupation. But she is self-professed the worst pies in London because of the price of meat and where you get it, if it's fresh or not. Her literal kitchen, whatever table, it's crawling with roaches and other things, and the meat just looks like a gross-ass meat slop.
The ingredients are moldy, and everything is just like, she's just kind of like throwing things around like they've been out for a long time. If Yelp was a thing, she'd probably have like 0 stars.
She would have reviewed herself and
she
said,
would have reviewed. It's great.
Isn't that just revolting? She's very honest about it.
She's very honest about how terrible her business is.
It does have one of my favorite lines of song where she's talking about other people who sell pies on the street, and she goes, "I've noticed lately all of her cats have disappeared.
Yeah.
I gotta hand it to her. Popping pussies into pies is pretty smart." And then she's like, I wouldn't do it. Also, those cats are fast, so
so she's tried.
I've tried, but I wouldn't do it.
I've tried to cook cats.
And
she does at one point also, like, as she's singing and as they're kind of like meeting and getting familiar, she does just give him a pie, which he takes a bite out of and immediately spits out.
Yeah. Because she's like, isn't that just gross?
Yeah, it's
isn't
gross.
That disgusting?
It's disgusting.
I think Helena Bonham Carter is great here. I think everybody here is great. So the only person I think who is maybe not fantastic singing wise is Alan Rickman, but he also doesn't have a ton of singing bits or really many lines of dialogue in the movie to begin with. But yeah, I think he still does fine. I just think he's probably the least comfortable singing.
I can also picture him being like, I would like to do as little singing as possible.
Yeah, maybe. He did say in one of the behind the scenes things that as an actor, it's probably one of the most frightening things that you go in and have to sing and perform in front of Stephen Sondheim, his own music.
Oh, that's probably...
That
guy's got Oscars, doesn't he?
Stephen Sondheim?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I think he's got lots of awards.
He's definitely won awards for Sweeney Todd, and it's not the movie, but the play.
Right.
I don't know if he's ever won anything for other stuff.
Alan Rickman does such... He had always done such a great job of playing a bad guy. Or someone that's, very dark and broody and...
He has won one Academy Award.
Did he? For what?
We'll look it up. Keep going.
No, but yeah, he does such a great job, and I kind of forgot that he was even in this movie. He's so great at being so bad, and I love it.
So, I don't know what I expected his win to be, but it definitely, in a million years, I never would have been able to guess this. Really? But he won Best Original Song in 1990 for the song Sooner or Later, I Always Get My Man from the movie Dick Tracy.
What?
Yes.
No kidding. He did the music for Dick Tracy?
I guess so.
That's one of the first Halloween costumes I ever went as. My brother was Dick Tracy and I was Breathless Mahoney.
Yeah, so Sweeney Todd's won him a bunch of awards, obviously.
Yeah. He's probably got a bunch of Tonys.
He had 6 Tonys, and he was honored for Lifetime Achievement in 2008.
Oh, wow.
He had 5 Laurence Olivier Awards and also an honorary award from them. And then he had won a number of Grammys.
Wow. Good for him.
8 Grammys. And then the 1 Academy Award. Those are like the major awards. Yeah. I'm sure there's a bunch of miscellaneous ones in there, but those are like the major ones.
Yeah, I'd be nervous too, singing around him.
Yeah. So, anyway, I think the music's great throughout. I think everybody sings really well. Honestly, I think Johnny Depp is, like, I can't imagine a different actor in the role, specifically in this movie.
I can't either. I think he was kind of made for that kind of character.
Yeah. So I was very, very good there. Kind of sidetracked.
Yeah, sorry.
But that's what we do here. So
that's what we do.
So after she sings her song, he asks about the vacancy upstairs, saying, if your times are hard, why don't you rent that out? And she's like, no, I can't do that. Mm-hmm. And he asks why, and then she starts to sing a similar song to what he sung earlier about a barber and his wife. Mm-hmm. But in this case, she's singing, there was a barber and he was beautiful. Clearly indicating that she has always had the hots for him. Yeah. But explains that we get a little bit again that there was a barber and his wife and he was beautiful. She was a little nitwit, sort of. Like she was a beautiful blonde who had no brains is basically what she's trying to get across. And he asks, well, what happened to the wife? And she's like, okay, well, after he was sent away, she stayed locked up there, and the judge kept coming around, and then eventually Beetle Bamford came and invited her because the judge felt so sorry. Mm-hmm. And when she goes that night, it's to a party, a masquerade ball that the judges put on, where she doesn't know anybody there. They're all in masks. She kind of gets like dizzy from what's going on, and they're like handing her drinks and stuff, and she just kind of gets lost in the shuffle. And during this time, while not explicitly said, pretty much implied that the judge takes advantage of her here and probably rapes her, which leads to, as Miss Lovett says, that she ends up taking her own life by eating some arsenic, even though she tried to stop her. She basically took her own life. That's kind of what's said. She drinks some poison, more or less. It's implied that she had died. And Todd is visibly upset by this.
Right.
And she goes, "I knew it. You are Benjamin Barker.
Yeah.
You've returned." And he goes, "No, I'm not Benjamin, and I'm not him anymore. I'm Sweeney Todd now.
Yeah.
And I'm here to have my revenge."
You see such a complete change in his face when he learns this. He learns that not only the woman that he loved was taken advantage of and put into a situation that she very clearly didn't belong in and wasn't comfortable in, to the point that she regrets everything so much, she takes her own life, and there's a child.
Well, that she took poison.
Took poison.
Not necessary. It's important for the story that she doesn't say anything about her actually dying, but that she just took poison.
She took poison, and she seemed a little bit. What's the word? She seemed kind of like
ditzy. Wait, who?
Helena Bonham Carter's character. She kind of seemed like this is just very matter of fact, and she seemed.
Oh yeah, because she wants that Sweeney Todd for herself.
Yeah, so she's like.
She wants that Sweeney D for herself.
Ew. She's just very matter of fact about it, and this is just what I think happened, and it is what it is, and sorry.
Yeah, and she does also reveal that Todd's daughter, Joanna, who at the time was about 1 year old. I don't believe the movie says how old she is, but she's old enough that she's in a little like stroller.
Yeah, she's like in a little carrier thing.
Are those bassinets?
No, bassinet's what you got next to the bed.
Oh, that's the rocking thing. Okay. Yeah. I don't know shit about babies either. So, in a little stroller carriage thing, very clearly very young. But it's been 15 years since then. And she reveals that Judge Turpin basically adopted Joanna and keeps her as his ward. Yes. Locked away so that nobody can see her. Very creepy. So they go upstairs, and Miss Lovitz reveals that she has saved his razors, his straight edge razors that he had when he was a barber, made out of silver. And this is where we get the song "My Friends," which is a great song. And he's singing to the blades about I'm home, we're back together again. And Miss Lovitz is also sort of co-singing with him, but about being like, "I'm your friend, Mr. Todd. I'll be your friend. Yeah. I'm here for you. Silver's good enough for me."
Yeah.
And he just generally is ignoring her the whole time. Like, I don't give a shit.
I couldn't tell if he was ignoring her or if he was just like not picking up.
He doesn't care. He's not there for that.
Yeah.
He's there for one thing only, and that's revenge for what happened. And now he believes that his wife was more or less forced into killing herself, and then his daughter was taken away, to which he thinks he'll never be able to see her again.
Yeah.
We also get the great moment and shot. I love the way that this is shot, but when he stands up, there's this big, like, I don't know what, there's a certain term. It's almost like a skylight sort of window. I don't know the exact term for it or something.
Yeah,
but the way that the roof is, it's like a slanted roof, and there's this massive window on it. And it's just this great shot of him standing up in like this moonlight coming through this window with the shadows and everything. And he just holds the thing up and he's like, "At last, my arm is complete again." He's also singing during this that he's going to use it to they're going to bleed rubies.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's one of those weird things where it's just like, it's a musical number and a thing. What's said isn't exactly 100%, you don't need to care. Or if it's just like Miss Lovitz is so strangely in love with this man that she doesn't understand that what he means is like, I'm going to kill people.
Yeah.
Or very specifically, I want to kill a person. But I don't know how you take bleeding rubies any other way.
I don't think that she gets it, but I also wrote in my notes, too, that I thought it was a really visually, I mean, it could just be, it just could be a coincidence, But I thought that it was really interesting if you compare the scenes together. This this upstairs area that has this big slanted window, and the way that it is so open looks so much like the open attic in Edward Scissorhands. That's also slanted. Like, don't you think that that's a really cool comparison? I literally looked
that is probably just a sort of architectural style that Tim Burton likes or something.
I liked.
I mean, it could also be like self-referential in that it's like, hey, do you remember the first time we saw Edward Scissorhands?
Yeah.
He was also in like a little attic thing, and there was a hole in the roof that shined through lights.
And it was slanted, and I thought that was a clever comparison. It may not mean anything, but I made a note of it.
Even if it's not, it could also be like a subconscious sort of thing. I don't know. Because obviously in the stage play they're not in a building.
Right.
They've got again, specifically referencing to the 1982 one that I've seen, is the set for the pie shop and the upstairs is one unit that you can walk in and out of, but they rotate it, so it's on like wheels, and they can rotate it, and they got little stairs on the side that they can go up to be in the top. It doesn't have walls. The top's just like a flat board.
That's interesting.
And then the bottom is like you got like a countertop and like a wood floor, and then a door that you can walk into. So it is like a box, but it's meant they push it on and off stage and can rotate it around and stuff to, demonstrate like the movement of where the scenes are taking place and stuff. And then you have an upstairs and a downstairs. So if something's happening upstairs, you could have Miss Lovitz and Toby, who we'll get to, like in the downstairs reacting to like sounds or something, for example. So now that he's got his razors back, again, Miss Lovett's trying to get close to him, but he generally seems to just kind of be basically ignoring it. He's so set on this revenge of his that he doesn't really see kind of what's going on around him. And this is where we then cut to seeing Anthony sort of just walking the streets, and he's looking for like Hyde Park, but he's just kind of walking, and he comes to this building, and he looks up. In this window on the second floor is this young blonde woman singing about being in a cage, singing to her birds, about like, I wish I could fly away and be free like you, but instead I'm trapped here. And this is where Anthony first sees Joanna.
Just love at first sight.
And absolutely. How old is Anthony supposed to be? Who knows? We know Joanna's at least 16. Yeah. So, how old did you need to be a sailor back then? I don't know, but
Too young, I guess.
I'm guessing he's probably a little bit older. This is also where we get I really do like the song that he sings about Joanna, where he's like, I see you, Joanna.
It is a really nice song.
I do love that. While singing, while he's sitting out there, a homeless woman comes up to him, begging for change. Do you have change for a miserable woman? Mm-hmm. And we'll see her a few more times kind of popping up. He asks her, whose house is this? Mm-hmm. Who is that? This is where the old woman goes, oh, that's Judge Turpin's house, and that's Joanna. Don't even think about it.
It's a very, very nice part of town. Mm-hmm. Like, between him and the homeless woman, they're pretty much the only people that aren't wearing like super nice clothes. And
Anthony?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's also sort of wearing like basically what he had off the ship, but sailory stuff. In the play, he is wearing like straight up sailor sort of uniform stuff.
Like white thing.
It was blue, but with like the little collar flap thing and whatever, like very, very to be like, he is a sailor.
He's a sailor.
This one a little bit less so, but basically same idea. Judge Turpin hears the commotion outside, apparently. I mean, if you just start singing in the street, somebody's going to hear you, I suppose.
Someone's going to notice.
And he invites Anthony inside, brings him into his office, I suppose.
Parlor.
Sure, whatever. And he sits him down, and he's talking to him a little bit, and it's all a ruse. He basically
he offers him a glass of whiskey or something.
Yeah, he's basically just trying to be like, fuck around and find out.
He basically is like, I saw you looking at my daughter.
No. You gandered at her.
You
gandered at my ward. I saw you gander at her.
I swear to God, I wrote that in all caps in my notes.
I did too. You gandered at her.
You gandered at her.
You gandered.
The audacity. How dare you, you man off the streets, gandering at my ward.
Basically, Turpin just tells him, don't even think about it, or else.
Exactly.
And then has Beetle take him out back, push him, and then Beetle's little retractable cane, he whacks him a number of times and says, get out of here.
He's such a piece of shit.
He is. Timothy Spaulding is great at being like a little Weasley piece of shit.
He's so good at being like a little, what's the word? Like I'm
a rat.
Yeah, like you're like peon. Like I'm too good to do it, so I'll send my little riffraff off to do it. He's so good at that, and it's also so funny to me. I wish that there could be, if I was Anthony, I would have been like, to the judge's character, I'd have been like, wait, what's the situation here? Are you trying to be like a father figure to her, or are you trying to be like a husband figure to her? Like, why are you so threatened by someone just off the street looking at a window?
Yeah.
You know?
So
very insecure for someone that
that
holds themselves to such high regard as being a judge.
Yeah, so Anthony kind of runs off, but is like, before he does, Joanna tosses him a key, just willy-nilly out the window, like, okay. So he runs off. We then catch back up to Todd and Miss Lovitz, and they're sort of in like a market, and she's bringing him to see a renowned barber, the king of the barbers, Pirelli. And when they get there, we get probably, I don't know that it's like my favorite musical number, but I love everything in this movie. Yeah. But we get the little boy, Toby, who is selling a miracle elixir. Toby is played by Ed Sanders, who at the time was very, very young. I don't know how old he would have been. He would have been, that was 2007. He would have been 14 at the time. 13 maybe when they were filming it, depending on when they filmed it, when it actually came out. Anyway, so he plays Toby, and Toby is standing on this little stage, and he's going, ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? And he's trying to sell this miracle elixir to cure baldness. Yeah. He's saying, how do I know that this works? And he takes off his hat, and he's got these long golden locks.
Long platinum blonde hair.
And while he's doing this spiel to kind of sell it, very catchy, very good salesman.
It reminded me so much of like those old timey people that would try to get you to come into a circus. Like, come on, come see what we're doing over here.
That's kind of the thing.
Yeah.
While he's giving this tonic out, passing it around, Todd and Lovett get a bottle of it, and they start to make snide remarks, being like, ooh, what is this? Oh, it smells like piss. Must be piss. It's piss with ink. Or like, be careful, don't put it on your boots or it'll eat right through. Yeah. And Pirelli hears this and comes out, and this is where we see Sacha Baron Cohen as Pirelli, who
looks like an 18th century Liberace. Like, he looks ridiculous, and he is so extra.
He's supposed to be. It's all show. That's the thing.
All show.
It's all show. It's he's Italian. He's the king of the barbers. He's even shaved the Pope. That's the whole thing. He's a barber of kings, the king of the barbers, who's even shaved a Pope. That's the whole spiel. And he's like, I want to know who calls it piss.
Yeah.
Who does this?
Who's talking about my weird concoction?
And then Todd's like, it was me. I do. And I bet you £5 that, or pence, whatever it was, that I can shave a cleaner shave than you can.
Yeah.
Either you take on my bet, or you admit to being a fraud.
Yeah. Admit to the people that your elixir is bullshit.
Yeah. So they have a shaving contest, and just happens Beetle Bamford is in the crowd, and Todd, because he knows of his close relationship to Judge Sherpin, invites him to be the judge.
Right.
And I love this scene too, because it just shows that Pirelli is mostly just show. He's singing like to shave of the face and blah 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 blah, and he's putting on the shaving cream, and he's like going to shave, but he's like he'll do like one stroke and then sing this verse or have this big high note that he hits.
What's funny as well during this scene is that he's got his little apprentice
Toby
helping him, who's like holding his arm out and his hand out to help him, and the
he's
guy
getting
is
nicked.
he just keeps nicking him with the shaving razor, just like over and over again, and the kid's just like ow, ow, ow.
Which is also very important for the character of Toby to understand the situation that he's in currently is not great, and that Pirelli kind of treats him like shit. It's very important character-wise, especially later on.
It's also important too that we're watching Sweeney Todd and Mrs. Lovett. They're also witnessing how he's treating this kid. Is she most important?
Todd doesn't care.
Todd doesn't. Yeah, you're right. Todd doesn't care. She does. She's watching the kid be mistreated, and she's kind of like, well, that's not really fair, and that sucks. He's clearly being taken advantage of.
Right. So while Pirelli's showing off and doing these high numbers, and he's shaving the face, Todd hasn't even started. But once it kind of gets to like a crescendo, Todd applies the shaving cream and quickly shaves the face before Pirelli can finish his high note, and he's declared the winner. So Todd gets his £5 and then is asked by the guest cameo of
Giles.
Well, where do you have an establishment? And Miss Lovett says, oh yeah, over on Fleet Street above my pie shop. And he invites Beetle Bamford to come over for a shave at some point. And Beetle's like, okay, I'll take you up on it sometime. I'll show up sometime before the week's out. I'll show up. And
I'd just like to throw it out there, and I said this during the movie, and I'm sure I've said it before, but that old school clean razor shaving scares me. Like, I don't know how people were just okay with like throwing their neck back and letting their Adam's apple just be free for razors to go right on it. It gives me the ooeyes.
So Todd and Miss Lovett go back to the store. Todd's impatient. He's like, why hasn't he come yet? Why hasn't he come? And it's like, dude, it's been like 20 minutes. Yeah. Chill. At this point, Anthony comes in, and he goes to Todd, and he says, there's this girl. She's got the key. She's a judge has her, and I'm going to go tonight and break her out and leave. And Todd realizes that that's Joanna, so he fully supports it. He's like, look,
absolutely,
bring her here before you leave, and then you can get out of, then we'll help you get out of town all set. Because it's sort of like a win-win situation. Yeah. He's potentially, his daughter's getting out, maybe he can meet her, and she'll be safe, and then whatever, cool. From there, they see Pirelli's coming with Toby, and Todd says, keep the boy downstairs. Miss Lovett goes out there and says, I'll give him some meat pies, whatever. And Pirelli's like, whatever, I don't care, do what you want. Yeah. Pirelli comes upstairs, and it's revealed that he's not Italian. He is not Italian. It's a fake accent that he's putting on, and he says, look, you think I wouldn't recognize you with those razors? Maybe you don't remember me, Benjamin, but I used to sit in this chair sweeping the hairs watching you use those. So, either you're going to pay me all of whatever you make, or I'm going to go tell the judge. And Todd realizes that he can't have this, not now especially, and we get the scene of this like tea kettle boiling. You start to hear it whistle, and you see it like snap in Todd, and he takes it and he beats him in the head with it.
Just absolutely wrecks him.
Yeah. So.
Is this also when she gave him the gin?
Yes. She so.
Yeah, because there's a.
That's after. So, Toby hears the sound downstairs. And he realizes, oh shit, he's late for an appointment. I gotta go tell him. Runs upstairs, no Pirelli.
Right.
And Todd's like, he went somewhere, he rushed off somewhere, and Toby's like, well, I'll just stay here. And Todd's like, no, you should really go downstairs. And he's no, I shouldn't leave. He goes, how about you go downstairs and you tell Miss Lovitz that I told you can have some gin. Yeah. And Toby's like, fuck yeah, say less. Say less. Runs downstairs, and we see in the box that Toby was sitting on is a hand sticking out. And That's twitching. And Todd goes over and opens it up, and Pirelli's still alive. And as he's lifting his head up, Todd just slices his throat.
Very graphic.
And Miss Lovitz comes upstairs and is like, what happened? Where did he go? When's he coming back? And Todd's like, he's not, and reveals the dead body. And Miss Lovitz is like, well, that's a shame.
She's not very shocked.
No.
And she's not very shocked. She's just kind of like, well, rats, I guess. And then also she immediately pulls out she pulls out basically like what his wallet would be, like a little bag of pence and pounds or whatever. And she's like, well, shouldn't go to waste, so.
We then cut to Judge Turpin, who is in the middle of a trial, and just to like seal the deal of how much this guy's an asshole, is he sentences somebody to hang until dead, and it's revealed to be a child.
It's literally a child. He is a child on the stand.
And the best part is after he literally asks, like, did he do it? And Beetle Bamford goes, well, if not, he probably did something.
They're just like, whatever.
Who cares?
Who cares?
From that point, the judge decides that he's going to marry Joanna to prevent her from leaving or anybody looking at her.
Which, again, gross. Ew.
Yes, again. But when he proposed it, she shunned him from the proposal. And Beetle says, well, my lord, if I might, you're not looking your best. You got a little stubble on your chin. You're not dressed that great. Your hair's kind of rough. Maybe you need a shave and some nice French cologne, and that'll drive her wild.
That'll do it, yeah. That'll get a 16-year-old to like you.
Yeah, and he says, look, I know of this excellent barber. We'll go there. We'll get you looking nice, and then she can't refuse you. So Beetle brings him to Todd, and they get upstairs, and that's when they start to sing Pretty Woman. So Todd has Judge Turpin there in his chair, and as he's about to slice the neck, they sing Pretty Women. Yeah. Pretty women, the way they make a man feel. Our cat's going crazy.
Our cat is she's got the zoomies and she's just launching herself up and down the stairs.
Clearly she's a fan of Sweeney Todd.
She's a big fan. So excited.
So as they're singing, and it's building and building, the song is building to this moment, and it's about to happen, into the room comes Anthony, and Judge Turpin obviously recognizes him and says, if this is the company you keep, you will have none of mine, and leaves. And Todd, very angry, even though he had ample chance to just do it immediately, but he decided to sing a duet with the guy he hates.
Taking his time.
They have a shared interest of beautiful women, is what it was.
It's just it's also so creepy because he knows that the judge is singing about his
daughter. Yeah.
I hate it.
So Todd yells at Anthony to get out in a great scene. The way I liked, he's like, "Get out!"
Oh, I hate that.
I love it.
Oh, I hate that.
And then Miss Lovitz comes upstairs because she sees that the judge had left and was like, what the hell happened?
Yeah.
And he's like, I had him. And then she goes, Todd basically blames her and goes, it was your fault. You told me to wait, to take my time, to not just kill him. It's your fault. And this is where he snaps and is just like, I don't care. Everyone deserves to die now.
Yeah. He even gets aggressive towards her.
Yes. He sings that everyone deserves to die.
Yeah.
He's like, even you, Mrs. Lovett, even I, we all deserve to die. And we get the shot of him going through the street. Obviously, this is like a fictional bit where he's walking through the street pointing at people. You, sir?
Yeah.
To, sir. How about a shave?
Yeah.
Come on, see your old friend Sweeney.
I loved that scene.
Yeah.
Everybody is just going on about their day. Meanwhile, he, the way that he's envisioning it, he's in turmoil and he is so upset and no one cares and he's all alone and he's just walking up to person by person by person, basically threatening them like, I could kill you right now. I could kill you right now. What about you? I can do you too.
Mm-hmm. And during the ending bit of the song, he's like, at last, basically feels like he's alive finally. Yeah. And Miss Lovitz comes up with the idea of well, if we're gonna be doing this, what are we gonna do with all the bodies? There's we could, wait till the cover of night, then move the bodies, but that's a lot of work, and you'd probably eventually get caught, and where would you store them in the meantime? And then she comes up with the idea of,
how can we turn this into a positive?
The one lady's making cats into pie, so why don't we...
What's the difference?
Turn the people into pies, and Todd loves the idea.
He is on board immediately.
Men devouring men, my dear.
Yep.
Who are we to deny it? And this is where we get the great scene of them looking out the shop window, pointing at different people with different occupations about what do they taste like?
They're talking about people as though they are different cuts of meat. Well, that one's kind of gamey, or that one's kind of fancy. Maybe that one's not so great. When we're talking about a preacher or a lawyer or just a handyman.
Yeah.
They're well, they're all gonna taste different.
Yeah.
They're
Try the priest.
Try the priest. They're coming up with the menu as they're looking out the window, and it's disturbing but hilarious.
Yes. We then see that Judge Turpin, because of what happened, he realized that Anthony's going to keep trying, so he sends Joanna to an asylum to keep her from getting out, to keep anybody from getting to her, and then after a few years or months, he will take her and she'll be glad to have him, because he'll then be the hero who took her out of the asylum.
Yeah.
Anthony chases after the carriage as he sees it getting taken away, to discover that she's been sent to the asylum. Todd, during this time, builds the famous chair, that basically reclines back to dump the bodies into the basement, which is where the furnace is at for the pies. And then we start just seeing Todd killing people while singing about his daughter, and we're just seeing him killing people left and right. Doesn't really matter who they are, not important characters, just killing them. We again see the homeless woman come out saying "City on fire." Doesn't anybody smell that awful smell coming from that place? Something's wrong.
Yeah.
And obviously nobody's going to listen to her because she's just a beggar.
Old crazy lady. But she did immediately try to point out that something fucky is going on.
Yes.
At that place. And
City on fire.
Yeah. And then while all of that's happening, Mrs. Lovett's business booming.
Absolutely booming. We do see that Todd doesn't kill one man because his family's there with him.
Oh yeah.
So he begrudgingly looks at the family yeah, I guess. But yes, business is now absolutely booming. People are loving these meat pies.
It's clean. It's got new lighting. It looks nicer. No roaches or anything like that. It looks like a totally different place.
Mm-hmm. And Toby's there helping. The homeless woman keeps trying to come in, and Miss Lovitz is like, throw the old woman out. Who keeps being like, something's wrong, city on fire. And basically the business is great. Now this is obviously at this point she's baking people into the pies. So there's this bit to the story of cannibalism, which is a very classic tale that again goes back to like the Penny Dreadfuls and stuff about cannibalism being very much a horror subject.
What was that movie called? Where it's like, it's people, you're eating people.
Soylent Green?
Soylent Green, that's it. I love that movie.
The movie where it's people?
Yeah. You know
It could be a lot of things. So we then see at this point...
Do you think that you know the difference if you ate a cheeseburger that was made of beef and was made of a farmer?
I would think I'd maybe taste a difference.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I'd be able to tell that it's human.
I'd like to think
I don't know.
I know the difference.
I don't know what human tastes like, but I know what a beef hamburger tastes
Right.
like. So I think if you gave me like a turkey burger and a hamburger next to each other, I think I would know which one is which.
I have been wanting to do that to you for a while, to give you like an Impossible burger and a regular burger and see if you could tell the difference.
Well, I say that, but then people always say that some of those Impossible burgers do taste like surprisingly, and a lot of things nowadays do get flavored as like this is a seasoning that's supposed to taste like this thing, but it's not actually that thing. So who knows?
I really hope that I would know if I was eating a creature.
But I would assume, I think back in this time, they don't have that. They're not injecting this meat with some sort of something to make it taste like something else.
That's very true.
Anyway. So, to people, I mean, if you've never had people before, you don't know what people taste like. So, you could very easily just be like, "Ooh, what's this recipe?" And you could just be like, "Oh, pheasant." Oh, jeez. Okay.
Anyway.
So, at this point, with business going so well and everything happening, Miss Lovitz sings, like, you know, Mr. Todd, I think we should go on vacation. And we should maybe just move on with our lives and be happy. And I pointed out, I said this to you, I was like, this is how I feel when you're asking me, like, you want to hear about this thing I watched?
Oh, yeah.
Where she's like, do you want to hear my dream, Mr. Todd? Do you, huh? And he's like, yeah, sure.
He's so just like...
It's showing that, like, he very clearly doesn't really care.
Yeah. He's emotionless.
Even though she is very much, like, head over heels in love with him, he just doesn't care. But it works because he also doesn't care that he's spending his time with her, but for him it's not anything more than like, you're very convenient for what I'm doing at this point.
It almost like if you watch TikToks or YouTube videos of people trying to be affectionate with their cat and the cat is just so unbothered by it, that's literally their relationship. She's trying so hard to get him to see her idea and her way of what they could possibly be, and he is just on autopilot.
Yeah.
He's like, sure, oh, yeah. All right.
Yeah, and this is where we just get By the Sea, which is very colorful and bright and uplifting, but he's wearing basically black in every shot.
Black and white.
And Toby's there because she's basically adopted Toby. After this, Anthony shows up and tells them that Joanna's been put into an asylum and he's not sure how to save her. And Todd comes up with the plan to break her out, saying, well, you know where these wig makers get their wigs is from the asylum. So we're just going to say that you're an apprentice to a wig maker and you're there to get some hair and you'll just pick out her. So you'll need some blonde hair. They'll take you up there because they won't know any better, and you get her, and then you get yourself out. So Anthony goes about to do that, and Todd sets up a plan to get Turpin there. He sends Toby. He pens a letter for Judge Turpin saying, "Hey, you need to come here if you want to get your award." And he gives it to Toby and says, "Toby, go straight to Judge Turpin. Do not give this to anybody else. Don't read it. Just go to him and give it to him." Toby goes and does that, and then we get moment where Toby and Lovett are together.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where he sings his song about nothing's gonna harm you,
Yep.
not while I'm around. And this is his... Basically, this is where it ties back to what I said earlier, which is where it's important to realize that when he was with Pirelli, he was being abused, and Pirelli was shitty. He's trying to tell her that demons will come for you, but I won't let them.
Yeah.
And he's trying to insinuate that someone upstairs, Todd, is like, he's not the man you thinks he is, that he's awful, and I know that he's awful because I've been around awful men before, and there's something not right. And she picks up on this, but she's like, just have some more gin, go to sleep, whatever.
I would also like to make a note that you ruined that song for me.
By saying that Max would sing that song.
I loved that song before. I liked it the first time around, but then before it started, you were like, if Max could sing or something, like this would be his song to you. And then I started listening to it and it was like, I will protect you from everybody and I'll protect you from harm. And I was like, why'd you do that? You changed the song for me now. Now it's all I can think about.
This is also where he sees the little coin purse that she took off of Pirelli's body. Yeah. He realizes something's wrong and he's like, no. And she's like, no. Mr. Todd got this for me. Yeah. And she goes, you know what? You've always wanted to help make the pies, so how about I show you how we make the pies? And she takes him down to the basement, gets him in the basement, and goes, you know what? Let me go fetch something to drink real quick. I'll be right back. You stay down here, have as many pies as you want. Yeah. And she locks the door on him.
It's so interesting, too, her character. You're watching this character who doesn't at first seem to have a maternal instinct in her body, or a maternal bone in her body, suddenly do have it just for him, just for Toby. And she's kind of struggling on, I feel like, accepting the fact that she cares for this kid, when she probably never thought that she...
Well, she now realizes that he's caught on. And she goes upstairs to get Todd to come down and kill him. Yeah. Because unfortunately he's gonna know now.
He's a liability, and she doesn't want him to ruin this dream that she has, or this life that she wants to have with
yeah, Toby. And Toby during this has found in like the meats he takes a bite of a pie and pulls a finger out of his mouth and then sees other, like a hand and ribs and stuff from human remains.
It starts to all click and come together.
Yeah. Now, just before Todd can go downstairs to kill him, we do see that Anthony manages to get Joanna out of the asylum. Mm-hmm. He is taken in by the doctor into the room of the blondes. He's shown, like, they separate them by hair color.
Yeah, they separate.
There's brunettes and redheads and
there's
the
a
blondes.
Room of brunettes, a room of redheads, a room of blondes.
As it should be.
Oh, great.
So he goes in there, and he picks Joanna out, and as the doctor's going to get her, he pulls a gun out on the doctor, takes Joanna, and leaves the doctor to be mauled by the blondes.
He basically was like, I'm going to leave you in here and let them do to you what you've basically been doing to them. And they just go at him like a pack of wild dogs.
No.
Pack of wild blonde dogs.
Yeah. I think those would be golden retrievers. Back with Todd and Miss Lovett, they're about to go to the basement, but Beetle Bamford shows up and he says, we've been getting complaints about this smell, especially at night, so I've come to check it out. And Todd's just like, I don't know what it is, I don't have time. He's like, I still have to check it out. And he's like, okay, let's go upstairs. I'll give you some nice cologne or something first. We'll just spruce you up and then we'll let you take a look at it. And he's like, oh, okay, sure, why not? And he goes upstairs, and Todd gets him in the chair and kills him. Drops the trap. Toby's still downstairs, kind of freaking out about the stuff, but the body falls right in front of him, so now he knows
exactly
100% something fucky's happening.
Also very graphic again.
Yes.
They just hurl those bodies down.
So now that they've killed him, they go downstairs to get Toby, and when they go into the basement, they can't find Toby anywhere.
Yeah.
Toby has disappeared.
Toby's gone.
During this time, the homeless woman saw Beetle Bamford go there, and he hasn't come out.
Right.
And she gets nosy and goes upstairs and is like, Beetle, where are you? I know you're here, Beetle. Where are you hiding? You can't be anywhere. And then Todd shows up. Todd's covered in blood at this point from killing Beetle. And she's like, I didn't see anything. I don't know what's happening. And just in a certain light, she looks at Todd and goes, don't I know you, mister? And then he slices her throat.
Yeah.
And she's standing on the trapdoor, so he just hits the thing. She just falls straight down. The bodies are just piling up at this point. And then, at that point, Anthony and Joanna show up. Or Todd goes back downstairs. Anthony and Joanna show up. Todd's not there. Anthony says, okay, you just stay in here. We've dressed you like a boy. Nobody's going to know it's you. You hang out here. I'm going to go find Mr. I'm going to go make sure our ship's ready, and then I'll come back and get you.
Right.
He leaves. I kind of mixed that up. So Joanna is there when the homeless woman comes upstairs, because she hides in the little in the chest.
Yeah.
So she sees Sweeney Todd kill the homeless woman.
Yeah.
And then he finds her in the chest and is about to kill her when he hears Miss Lovett scream, and he says, don't move. He goes downstairs to find Miss Lovett, and when he gets downstairs, wait, is that right? Am I confusing things?
No, he's got her. Well, he's thinking that she is a boy or a random person.
Oh, no, you know what? We've, again, mixed things up really quickly. So, the homeless woman gets killed, and then he's ready to go back downstairs when Judge Turpin shows up. Joanna's still hiding at this point. Because of the note. So, he puts on the jacket to hide the blood.
Right.
And says, they haven't shown up yet. They will be here momentarily. How about before she shows up, we give you a nice shave, get you nice looking. And they get in that setup again, start singing about pretty women. And then Todd just stabs the shit out of him.
Like, hacks into him. Like, right into, like, a fucking artery or some shit.
Yeah.
There's blood everywhere.
Stabs the hell out of him, and then even slits his throat for good measure. And then drops him down again into the basement. That's where Joanna is found out. And he's about to slit her throat, not knowing it's her, because again, she's dressed up like a boy. And just before he does, he hears Miss Lovett scream, because Turpin is shown to, like, not fully be dead. He's, like, grabbing her pant leg, or her dress.
Yeah.
And she's, like, screaming. So he goes downstairs and is like, is everything good? And she's like, yeah, everything's fine. But she notices the homeless woman and tries to hide it from her. And she's starting to drag the homeless woman to try and get her into the furnace really quick, when the, like, light of the furnace sort of hits her face a certain way, and Todd realizes that this crazy beggar homeless woman,
whose hat has been covering her face for most of the movie,
her hair and stuff has been obscured most of the movie, is actually his wife.
Yeah.
And that he had killed his wife, and he realizes that Miss Lovett has lied to him. And she says, no, I never said she died. I just said that she took poison, and it made her just go crazy. And he basically is just like, you know what? It's cool, Mrs. Lovett. He's very, like, threatening approaching her, but he's, like, singing to her, and they start to dance, and he spins her around, and then he throws Miss Lovett into the furnace and locks it, while we get a visual of her just burning to death.
It was very much so like, you know how terrifying it is when someone is so angry that they're calm, and they're just like, they're not exuding any emotion at all. That's exactly what he was doing. He was being, like, I should be really horrifyingly mad at you right now, but you know what? We should dance instead. And then, sure enough, they danced in circles until they were backed up against the furnace, and then...
Yeah, and then Todd is holding his wife, sort of, just like, I can't... You even said, don't I know you? Sad. And then we see that Toby is still in the basement. He just went down, like, a little sewer grate thing.
Yeah.
And he comes up, and he picks the razor up from behind Todd, and he slits Todd's throat, killing him.
As he leans over
his wife.
Yeah.
And then the movie ends. You're just left to assume that Anthony comes back and it's like, all right, Joanna, let's get out of here. And Joanna goes, I saw some wild shit.
I saw some shit while you were gone.
But yeah, that's the end of the movie.
It's just so... It's so tragic and sad. It's tragic in a way that reminds me of like a Shakespearean kind of book. It's... Of course he would end up accidentally murdering someone, and this person that he thought maybe at least a little bit at some point he could trust kept things from him just for her own gain, and I don't know, it's such a poetically well done movie, I would say. It's very satisfying. The music is really great. The acting is great, and yeah, I love it. I think they did such a good job.
Yes. So the role of the crazy beggar woman is reduced a bit from the actual play. We're introduced to her as soon as they get off the boat in the play.
Oh, really?
She's there right off the beginning, and she does say the bit at that point of, don't I know you? And he's like, get away from me. So in that one, it's obviously here they're trying to make it last as long as possible without you realizing that that's supposed to be his wife, until like the final second to make it much more tragic that like she had been there the whole time, and
this old ugly hag, and
he kills her.
Yeah.
In the moment of reveal. So the movie is... Yeah, I love it. I think it's pretty fantastic. The song... I like all of the songs. I enjoy all of the acting in it. I think the visual style of Tim Burton, where it's a lot of like dark colors, the pale skin, the sunken looking eyes with the dark, makeup and stuff.
Yeah, the dark contoured eyes.
I think it all works very, very, very well. And yeah, I just love the movie. I love anything with Sweeney Todd. Like, I 100,000,000% would love to go see it.
Oh, that would be cool.
Broadway, I guess, would be the ideal, but like any sort of performance of it.
And we mentioned this on our podcast before, I think, but what's his name again? Is in
Josh Groban?
Josh Groban is in the current Broadway
rendition
of Sweeney Todd, and also Gatton Maserati.
The kid from Stranger Things.
The kid from Stranger Things, Maserati.
One of the kids from Stranger Things.
And I hear nothing but great things.
It's a great play. I don't imagine there would be. I mean, unless you cast like really awful people.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. I would love to see that. It's fascinating. I love all the history behind it, and I love the way that Tim Burton made it his own little pet, with the weirdness.
Yeah.
Again, some of the stuff a little bit gory, but not.
I don't think it's that gory.
It's not
I mean, it's kind of exaggerated gore, but it's also not too... It's not really too violent.
No.
There's only really the one big song set piece where he kills, I don't know, like 6 or 7 people.
It's all... When I say...
And then the end.
When I say gory for this, it's almost kind of comical gore. Does that make sense? Comical gore. So, a lot of blood, like excessive blood, but in a silly fun way.
Yeah. In a silly fun way.
In a silly fun way.
So I absolutely love this. I can't possibly recommend people watching it more. Again, a tiny nitpick is I don't think Alan Rickman was like the strongest singer, but he's fine in it. And yeah, I just really, really enjoy it.
I enjoy it too. I love all of the acting. I love all the chemistry. Even the stuff that I thought was gross was still fun. So, if you have never seen it, I personally recommend that you go watch it.
Yeah.
And if you get an opportunity maybe to go see the musical, go see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Musical's great. The opening number, I get why they don't have it, but the opening like song of Sweeney Todd is great. And I love the way everybody says the Demon Barber of Fleet Street.
I want to watch
You'll have to see it. I'll show you. Anyway, I guess thanks for listening. I don't think there's too much more to go on after that.
Thank you for joining us.
If you enjoyed the episode, leave a like or a comment or a rating on any of those services where it allows you to do those sort of things.
Yeah.
You can find us all over the place. Instagram, Facebook at COAS_podcast. YouTube, Chicken on a Stick, where we post video versions of this and some other stuff.
Yeah.
TikTok, we have some things out there. And then, every Friday we do a live review of a movie we saw that week over on Twitch. So you can find us there. But yeah, thanks for listening. And we'll see everybody again next week with Maggie's choice of something she hasn't picked yet.
I haven't picked it yet, but I am marinating on it. I'm thinking about it. Everybody have a fantastic week.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye.